So, I have a 9-inch scar right across the center of my belly. And the experiences that I had in the time preceding and following the day that I got that scar gave me a direct, embodied experience and learning of what would become later on one of the most important spiritual lessons that I would learn and eventually teach and share with others. Friends, welcome back to Heartscapes, where we're learning the system of Reiki to be rooted, to be spacious, to be connected, and to remember ourselves. My name is Michaela. Welcome back to the studio. I'm really glad to have you here. I wanted to tell you this story of my scar today because it's one that I've shared many times over the years. And I shared it again this morning with my housemate. He was telling me about his own experience with appendicitis and surgery, and we were kind of comparing medical stories. And I told this story again. But for the first time, I noticed this parallel between this physical experience, very intense experience I'd had as a teenager, and spiritual, emotional, psychological experiences that I would have later in life. And I was just enlivened by finding this new connection between my experiences that I hadn't seen before, and just really made me want to share it with you. So this lesson is actually one that I shared in the Community of Practice Facebook group that I run for Heartscapes Reiki. If you want to join us there, I'll put that link down below. And it was just an average meme share, as you do on social media. And this particular meme really summarized the spiritual lesson in a really beautiful way. It said, "There is discomfort in growth, and there is discomfort in staying the same. Choose your discomfort." And, this is, again, something that I've had to learn in my own life, and that is really an important and powerful foundational teaching that we use inside of our coaching and our Reiki classes. Because so often, in order for us to grow, to change, to heal, to expand ourselves, to learn something new, to become something new, there's going to be necessary discomfort. It's that pushing up against the boundaries of what we have always known. It's that caterpillar struggling inside the chrysalis, melting down into a pile of goo before reforming itself as a butterfly, and then struggling to exit that chrysalis. It's a necessary discomfort, a necessary struggle in order to enter the next phase of growth for this creature's life. This is a metaphor often used and applied to spiritual, emotional, psychological growth because it is so directly applicable and such a powerful metaphor. Many of us have had experiences in life where we come to realize the truth of this teaching, that there is discomfort in growth, and yet there's also profound discomfort in staying the same when we are meant to be growing. I personally ran up against that pretty hard in my late 30s and, really had to go through a process of choosing discomfort after many, many years of choosing to numb myself out from the pain and discomfort of staying the same. And when I finally made that choice, it was so clear, it was so obvious to me that this was a truth, that growth requires choosing discomfort. And what I realized this morning is that it was clear to me because I already had such a powerful, visceral, physical experience with this as a child. You see, I was born with a congenital defect of my gallbladder. Basically, the upshot being that as I grew, my gallbladder wasn't able to properly process and digest the toxins and biles and waste products of my body. In other words, it couldn't do its job quite right. Eventually, backing up that job so badly that it made me sick. There's a lot of medical details about this that as a child, I was never really fully clear on, and I think still to this day, I'm not necessarily getting exactly right. So, Mom, if you're watching this, feel free to, put corrections and details in the notes below. But the upshot was that by the time I was about 12 years old, I was starting to regularly experience kind of stomach distress, nausea. We kind of chalked it up to childhood flus and colds and things like that. But by the time I was 13 or so, it really couldn't be ignored because these symptoms had become much more exacerbated and were really expressing itself as hepatitis symptoms. So very intense nausea, jaundiced, yellowing of the eyes and my skin, intense itchiness, and just all kinds of unpleasantness that we just don't really need to go into here. But the bottom line being, I was very, very sick for about 2 years, progressively so. And the medical folks who were helping, really for the longest time, were so convinced that I had some form of, maybe new form of viral hepatitis, that they just kept searching for that same solution. My symptoms were presenting so specifically like hepatitis that they didn't widen their search. They were just convinced that that was what it was, that I must have some form that they didn't know about yet or that they couldn't detect for some reason. And they just kept testing for hepatitis over and over and over again and trying treatments that weren't working. And this went on for quite some time, and I got sicker and sicker and sicker to the point where just being ill was normal, was my normal day to day. And I couldn't sleep at night anymore. I crashed all day and spent all night in the shower just trying to get myself to not be so itchy and so ill. It was really a miserable time until one day there was a moment for one of my nurses or technicians where, I would love to know what actually happened for her in her mind, but what I experienced was all of a sudden she had a new idea. It was like, instead of trying the same thing that we've been doing over and over again, that's not getting us any results at all, let's try something different. And she did an ultrasound, took a look inside, and found that my gallbladder had swollen up to the size of a cantaloupe. It was huge. In fact, once she knew what to look for, you could feel it moving around in my belly from the outside. This was very alarming because it was filled with poison. Essentially, I had a water balloon in my gut that, at the slightest provocation, could burst open, flood my system with poison, and kill me. And that this had been growing steadily for so many years that at any point, for many years, with the right pressure, right, the right fall out of a tree, the right kick to the gut by a bully, because that happened in 6th grade, just the right jostling could have caused it to burst and caused an untimely and very unpleasant death. This was very sobering, as well as their rush to schedule surgery, which happened, in my memory, it happened a few days later from this moment. Perhaps it was longer than that, but it was very soon. And I just remember the excitement of finally having an answer. I don't know if you've gone through something like this where there is some chronic problem, some issue that's causing you consistent distress. And the experts who are there to help are trying everything they know. They're doing everything they can to try to find the solution or to even understand what's happening, and they can't find it. This has been going on for at least a couple of years, and it was so frustrating. And so that moment where she found the problem and knew exactly what to do about it, we have to cut you open and get that thing right on out of there. I just remember this flood of relief and excitement that we were going to move into this possibility of a solution. My mom was terrified. She was a nurse and she knew much, much clearer than I did what was actually going on and how dangerous the situation was. But I feel grateful that I was more or less ignorant of that and really just felt excited. because I had been in the discomfort of being the same for so long. And I was really, really ready to change. And I remember waking up after a 9-hour surgery in a lot of pain. Even through the morphine, I was in a lot of pain. There was a lot of tightness and just aching. And, I have a 9-inch scar. It was pretty severe surgery. They'd gone all up in my business and removed things and rewired things. I lost a third of my liver. It was intense. I was in a lot of pain when I woke up. But you know what else I noticed? I remember this clear as day. Again, even through the morphine fog. I was in a lot of pain, but I wasn't sick anymore. This feeling that had become so normal, this dull, throbbing, constant nausea, this intense itching all over my body, every surface of my skin, just in a burning itch most of the time, unless I was in the shower. This feeling of sluggishness, this feeling of just being dragged down all the time, it was gone. I was in a lot of pain, but I wasn't sick anymore. And this felt like a miracle. And I absolutely knew that the pain was worth it, that the discomfort and the pain that I was in immediately after surgery and for quite some time afterward, through a long, period of recovery, even the day that they pulled the staples out of my belly that was holding that scar together, it was a joyful day, because every day that I spent after that surgery was one more day that I was not sick. And that lesson got into my body. It's so present in my physical body. The feeling of the difference between necessary pain and unnecessary dis-ease and discomfort that had become normal, that had become just the day-to-day, the same every day, was powerful. It's a lesson that I carry in my body and probably always will. And so it's not surprising to me now, looking back, that the idea of that same truth being present in any sort of necessary growth, any sort of change, any sort of learning that we want to have that's going to bring us closer to who we are, to our purpose, to a healed and whole and healthy state of being, that there might be a path of discomfort that is absolutely worth it, 100%. Now, there's one more piece that I want to end on, which is that there is an equally powerful truth associated with this learning. And that is that along with that pain, that discomfort of growth, there is also pleasure. That pain and pleasure, joy, awe, wonder, beauty are actually close partners in the experience of growth and transformation, of healing, of learning, right? It's not all discomfort and pain. There is profound joy and pleasure in these experiences. Sometimes they're hard to find. Sometimes they take a while to present themselves. Sometimes they are the entire experience. Beauty and joy and awe and wonder and pleasure can transform and change us just as much as discomfort and pain. The key is to not shy away from the one in search of the other. Because if we're only seeking pleasure and we're only seeking joy, then that can become the type of seeking where we want to turn away from the discomfort and the challenge. And I know that dynamic so well. That is a dynamic that can become addiction. It can become unhealthy attachments. It can become profound distraction, right? Pulling us away from what we truly want and need and what truly serves us and our highest good. I know that story all too well. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the pleasure of clearing illness out of your body, even when there's physical pain. The pleasure of getting to the top of the mountain after an excruciating hike and seeing the absolute majesty of the valley out in front of you. The joy of remembering somebody that has just died that we love. Having that moment of absolute clarity as we remember our happiest times with them, and allowing ourselves to feel the pleasure of that, the joy of that, even in the midst of grief. That pain and pleasure, beauty and difficulty, grief and joy, they're close allies to us. They work inside of us in tandem. And we get ourselves stuck and bound up in dis-ease and unable to move forward, or in unhealthy coping mechanisms, when we only want to choose the one and not the other. And so it serves us greatly to learn to distinguish the pain and discomfort of staying the same versus the pain and discomfort of necessary growth, change, transformation, and healing. We all have examples of this in our life, in our past and in our future. And it really is what I'm here to do, to help people build their capacity to choose well, to walk their path well, to be resilient and spacious and rooted and compassionately connected as they learn to know themselves more and more deeply. So friends, thank you for listening. Thanks for going on this little trip down memory lane with me. This memory of my surgery and the time before and after really is a core experience in my life that truly does continue to shape me. And I, again, was delighted this morning when I kind of had this revelation and realized how that experience is still teaching me, right? Even all these years later. So friends, what experiences from your childhood continue to teach you? Where have you chosen necessary and good and right discomfort in order to move yourself out of the same old difficulty? I'd love to hear your experiences, your reflections on what I've shared. And as you move into these moments of choosing, when you step into the path of discomfort, of joy, of change in any form, may you be deeply provisioned for that journey. Thanks so much for being with me, for listening. Until next time, I love you. Bye-bye.